My next guest is described in this morning's Irish Mail as one of the world's greatest thinkers. Philosopher and columnist Roger Scruton has written over 40 books on subjects as diverse as hunting, sex, conservative politics and wine. And tonight he delivers the Aquinas Lecture at NUI Maynooth. Neurononsense and the Soul is his title tonight, and we'll get on to that in a moment. Roger, good morning and welcome.
Good morning. Thank you for inviting me.
Now, looking through your curriculum vitae and the mountain of work that you have accomplished, I'm struck as to how difficult it is to define you. I mean, how do you define yourself?
I suppose I define myself as a project.
A work in progress.
Yes, work in progress. Becoming what I think I should be.
Conservative with a capital or a small c?
Well, with a small c, inevitably. Nobody wants to confess to being a conservative with a capital C because the company's so bad. But I've always tried to define my own position in terms of the desire to hold on to what is good, rather than simply attacking what is bad.
What does it mean to be a conservative? What values, what institutions, even physical as well as political or educational, do you want to cling on to?
Well, of course, one of the things that I've been persuaded by is that conservatism cannot be the same thing everywhere. What the Irish would wish to conserve is not necessarily the same as what the English would. One must first of all identify the community with respect to which one is defining one's political position, and then within that you might say, well, this community flourishes because of this institution or that institution. In my case, I as an Englishman, one of the things that I greatly value is the common law that has governed our country on and off for 1,000 years. And I think it's one of the great achievements of the English, one of the things that I think has been jeopardized by much recent politics.
In other words, common law equals common sense.
Yes,
a lot of the
exactly.
time.
The way in which ordinary moral feelings can penetrate into the courtroom and secure a just judgment.
So when you talk about conservatism, we literally have to go back to the meaning of the word conserve.
Yes, exactly. I was brought up in the 60s, insofar as anyone was brought up then, and I was surrounded as a young man by people who were intent on destroying things. You know, they were full of rage against the bourgeois order and the post-war settlement and all that sort of thing. And I thought, well, this is all very well, but there isn't any purpose to destroying things if there isn't also the desire to find the things that you love and hold on to them. And I felt that, we are extremely lucky in the West in that we have enjoyed stable communities, legal protection, individual rights, and all these things which enable us to shout out our opinions in public. And people are not sufficiently careful as to what is needed to preserve those things.
If you go back, though, to the 50s and the post-war era and just harking back, because they say, that really was when all the fundamental change started. But, for example, the right of a woman to work, is that something that you wish were otherwise, that women would stay in the home? Is that one of your values?
I think that's a very interesting question. We all know that in the case of women, things have been changing very rapidly. My mother worked and didn't stay in the home, and it was necessary for her to work because we were really quite poor. And I think it's one of the things that has made it, for a while at least, made home life that much more viable, that there was the ability to augment the income. But everybody knows that now home life is threatened by the fact that the position of the woman in the home is undervalued. She feels that somehow
she's got to go out there and get a paid job.
Exactly. Otherwise, she's going to jeopardize her relationship, jeopardize her position as a woman in society. And that, of course, means that the thing has gone too far. And I believe that making home life respectable is an extremely important cause.
Another situation in that period, which wasn't changed until much, much later, was the question of homosexuality and the fact that it was decriminalized in the United Kingdom. Were you in favor of decriminalizing it? Were you?
Well, at the time, I was a young man with hormones who felt that decriminalizing anything sexual was wrong. But yes, I think that obviously that had to happen. People tend to forget that actually homosexuality was criminalized only in the 19th century. It wasn't regarded as a crime, although it was regarded as repugnant before the Victorian period. And I think that this was recognized as an anomaly. Since then, however, we've had a completely different attitude to the problem of homosexuality. It's not a question of whether it should be criminalized or not, but whether it should be normalized. And that is something which I think our societies are still.
I mean, you are against gay marriage, for instance.
Well, you can call something gay marriage, but that is actually a theological question of whether it would amount to a marriage. I think that this is an extremely complex issue, whether one should just leave it be. That was the traditional British attitude, that this occurs all the time, just let it be, but not make a fuss about it. But I think there has arisen, of course, the movement to normalise gay relationships and the whole gay scene, which is, I think, is actually potentially disorienting to all the people who don't belong to that scene, and that maybe something should be negotiated whereby this doesn't have to intrude as much as it does now.
One of the pieces I read, what is it? I drink, therefore I am. And you call on Muslims to go back to drinking wine. And it would appear, I haven't read the Quran from cover to cover, but it doesn't seem there is a prohibition on drinking of wine.
Well, there is, but it comes late in the order of composition of the text, and it has been ignored by Muslims and some of the greatest Muslims down the centuries. In particular, I take as the hero of my book. This is a book about wine and its philosophical meaning. I take Avicenna, Ibn Sina, who was their greatest philosopher of the Middle Ages, who was also a wino, and recognized that the Quran, in this respect, needed some interpretation, because we were being deprived of one of the instruments whereby people came to understand each other. And how could that be part of God's will?
You also suggest that we in the West are tippy-toeing around the fundamentalist problem.
Yes, I think it's understandable that when people become extremely assertive and violent and dangerous, that you do try to tiptoe around things and try to appease. But the evidence of history is that appeasement always amplifies the problem. At some stage you have to confront it and say, look, what do you want from me? And I will give it or I won't give it. But let's come to some arrangement.
Where do you come in on multiculturalism and the whole idea that what people bring to Britain or indeed to Ireland with them has to be respected? Or would you go along more the French way, which is, look, this is the way we do things in France. You like it or you lump it.
Yes, I think the French are absolutely right. If people come, certainly if I went to settle in another community, I wouldn't come with the spirit of defying the local customs and doing things which are regarded as offensive. After all, in the French case, obviously the thing that brought everything to a head was the wearing of the burqa, covering of the face, and I think that is offensive. Our societies are based upon face-to-face encounters where you take full responsibility for being a free being in the presence of other free beings.
So that's part of the deal?
Yes, that's part of the deal. If you don't like it, there are plenty of places you can go where you can get another deal. I can't understand why people don't take that attitude generally to immigration. Here is what we are. Do come and join us if you want really to join us. But to come and settle here and not belong is offensive to your hosts.